What's up guys, it's Silver here, and today I'm going to be talking about the things that I would want changed or added to the sequel if they ever make one. This was commented on one of my previous videos and a bunch of people liked it, so I decided this is going to be something I'll do. After I saw that comment, I went and actually started making a list of the things. So unlike my previous videos which aren't scripted, I'm actually going to be looking at something as I go on with this. So I'll also be covering something else that someone else commented on with this, so I'm just going to get straight into it. So some things that I would want changed or just existing to be in the sequel. First off, I want to be able to select a mode. The whole rotation system was kind of neat for the first week of the game, but then it came a problem when more modes were added, and now it's like I want to play Rainmaker, but Rainmaker is only at 3 a.m. and it becomes really annoying to want to play certain modes, but they're not in rotation until times where I'm not going to find anyone to play with, and I have to go into solo, and solo is going to be a nightmare because it's always going to be maps that I'd rather not play solo in. So if they had a sequel, I would much prefer if there were no rotations and you could just simply select the mode. Another thing, some new modes. Splat Zones, Tower Control, and Rainmaker are fine, but there are definitely quite a few other modes they could do, or even just change up some of the modes. I feel like Splat Zones would be a lot more interesting if the zone was moving. I can't remember the name of the mode because I haven't played Halo in a long time, but they had something similar to that where you had to stand in a certain area, and then after a while it would change. I think Call of Duty has that as well, but I haven't played either of those in a few years. But basically I feel like zones would be more interesting if it required you to change where on the map you had to hold. Because one of my biggest problems with Splat Zones is it has this problem where you take one part of the map and just stay there. And it's a game of camping the one spot. And so I feel like if the game mode forced you to utilize the entire map, it would be a lot more interesting. So, revamped gear system. The gear system in Splatoon currently is very flawed. You pay absurd amount of money to reroll every slot on your gear, and then you're not guaranteed anything. The amount of money you have to pay is equivalent to playing for quite some time. And I understand that they want to have people earn those slots, but one thing I would have liked is the ability to pay more to specify a slot. So now, say if I gave you the ability to pay 3 times the amount of money to choose a slot and make it whatever you wanted to, that'd be a lot more appealing than just rolling and hoping you get 3 things that you wanted. Now, this kind of isn't really relevant because gear editing and saves coming are a thing, but if you go back to launch and I told you could pay 3 times the amount of money to specify what you wanted, you'd probably go for that, wouldn't you? And so I feel like if there's a sequel, they should do that. Just have you can pay the same amount and roll all 3 slots and deal with whatever you get, or you can pay more to specify 1 slot. I feel like that would make it a lot better and a lot more manageable. A real single-player mode. For those that aren't aware, Splatoon was actually kind of rushed. There are a lot of interviews at early January, around the time where content was supposed to end originally, where the developers stated that the launch of Splatoon was very weak because the game was forced out early. They weren't actually done with it, and that's why all the content after launch was free, was because the game wasn't actually complete. And it was Nintendo that forced them to basically make the game stable enough to be able to be pushed out. And so single player is just kind of tacked on there. There's not much to the single player. They needlessly pad it by making you find the stages, which become very tedious around the end. And it was not something that I enjoyed, having to run around the map and try to find where the levels were. I feel like if they took the time and made an actual, real single-player mode, it'd be more interesting. But the way that the current single-player is, it's just really boring to me, and it's just not really that fun. More customizable options for your character. So, currently you can only do, skin tone and eye color and stuff like that. I feel like they should add the ability to customized more, like give you a different, like a lot of people talk about hairstyles. That would be a little more interesting. The problem with the current way that it was handled is they wanted to, the reason the hairstyles aren't changeable was because they wanted to make sure that the gender was easily distinguishable. And so I feel like if they went and made more hairstyles, they could make it a bit more obvious with like gender specific hairstyles or something, and not have everyone have the same hairstyles. That would be another thing. Other than that, I don't really know of anything else. Maybe like changing the height of the characters, but that could probably lead to some imbalancing. New abilities. There's a lot of there is an unused ability in the game right now that's I think it's called damage recovery. It has nothing else to it other than the name damage recovery, but it probably means that how fast you recover from damage. The ability goes unused probably because it seems very overpowered, and stacking a lot of it would mean you'd stay alive longer, and I can understand why they'd cut it. Just maybe a couple new abilities, maybe removing some of the ones that aren't really that helpful or that don't get used, or just completely retooling some of the abilities to actually be worth a damn. Now this is the one where I talked about was going to regard to another comment, where someone asked me if I think that creating like custom classes would be a thing, and if I think that should be a thing. And here I stated that I wanted a create a class system, but the difference between this is where when most people would hear create a class, they would think that any weapon with any sub and any special, and that'd be good. But the issue with that is then you get people running things like dynamos with krakens and bubblers and stuff like that. So the thing I have typed up here is each weapon has a specific amount of points, and subs and specials have point values. So say you choose a dynamo and it has 20 points, and you can use those 20 points to build the class. So like say to have it the special be kraken, it's 25 points, so a dynamo can't have that. And a bubbler is 30 points, so it can't have that. So you spend those points on the sub and special, and each weapon would have its own point value, basically. Like 10 attack would have like 30 or something. Like basically more powerful weapons would have lower point values, just to fix the problem where anyone would probably put a splash wall or a kraken or a bubbler on something, just to prevent that kind of spam from happening. Allow the changing of time for the maps. So there's the night mode for Splatfest, and there is a mod to change you can hack the game and change the time of day for the maps, so you can make it so you'll play in the Splatfest mode, but that's actually detectable by the server and you get banned immediately. I feel like they should allow you to do that by yourself. It'd make it more interesting. There's a lot of maps, especially right now, where I'd much rather play on the night version than the day version, especially like Modi, that's blinding with certain colors that day. I'd much prefer to play at like night or dusk or something, just change the time of day for the maps. Audio options. Now, you can modify the files and remove the music and such, but I feel like it should have been an option to begin with, just to mute the music and have the sound effects. It'd make it a bit more even, because like right now there are people that play in tournaments with muted music and just have dead silence and it's just the sound effects. And it kind of puts them at an advantage, I feel, because then they can hear people swimming easily, and it kind of like devalues like sneaking around and using Ninja Squid, because you can just hear them and then know where they're at. And the final one I have here is selectable ink colors. Now back when they announced color lock, or it was like shown off, what I thought it was is you would lock into the colors you previously used. Now the problem with that, there's a problem with the wording where they call it color lock instead of color blind mode. The point of color lock is to lock it into like the orange and blue colors. That way if someone is colorblind, they are more likely to be colorblind to one color than the other, or not colorblind to either. And so they called it color lock for some reason instead of colorblind mode. But I would have much preferred the ability to choose what kind of ink color you'd get, like what ink color you'll always be and what the enemy will always be. and that people made that possible with hacking. But unfortunately, Nintendo had started detecting the colors used in matches, and now people can be banned for it, and it's a little unfortunate because it was really fun. So those are all the things that I've written down. Those are just some of the things that I would want in a sequel. If you guys have any things that you would want changed or added, feel free to leave a comment, have some discussion about that. But those are just some of the things that I wanted. There may be some other things that I haven't written down, I just didn't think of. But that's all I have got. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you all later.